Hi guys, I have two amazing stories for you. It's actually a quite disturbing phenomenon that we're going to talk about today. It's called gaslighting. And I have met several people in these last few weeks and months who have gone through this, and I'm picking two stories. So I'm giving you two stories to make you aware and to prepare you, to protect you not to fall into the same trap. Okay, so first imagine a beautiful young lady who came to me for advice because her boyfriend told her that she had mental issues, that she was bipolar, depressed, and whatever. And hysterical, of course, and their relationship could not go on any longer if she didn't look for help. Now she came to me and we started to chat. Really, it was just a conversation in the beginning, and she told me so much that I started to wonder. All the things that she told me were not aligned with the message that her boyfriend was giving her. Her boyfriend used all these psychological expressions. He was giving her a diagnosis, basically. And I asked, why would you think that you're bipolar? Well, because he told me that I was. Is he a psychiatrist or something? No, but he knows a lot about these things. Now, as we talked and chatted with her, I didn't feel that neurotic vibe around her. I couldn't feel those mental issues. Of course, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not here to diagnose her. But the question just popped up in my mind that maybe it wasn't really the case. I couldn't feel anything abnormal. As she was talking about their relationship, how she behaved, for example, it came out that she reacted and she overreacted some things, but it was always a reaction to something. And I wanted to find out what that was. And she told me that whenever they were together with her boyfriend, she didn't feel his attention, his true attention. She always, whenever there were women around, she always felt that his attention just goes over to those women. He's kind of scanning the space. And he's giving these signs, these metacommunicational signs that he's available, that he's interested. And he kind of flirted on that non-verbal level with strangers, with women. And I thought that, well, that's quite a normal reaction. I mean, from a lady to become concerned, not to feel comfortable in a situation like that. And I asked how she reacted, how she behaved in such situations, and she told me a lot of things, different situations. And the pattern that started to appear was always the same, that she felt insecure. She wanted his attention. She wanted to turn him to her. And she started overreacting. She had a low self-confidence. And you know, these manipulative people, I call them predators. They feel when someone is insecure, has low self-confidence, is vulnerable. So he naturally found her, or chose her, because she was easy to form, to mold, to manipulate. So he could get everything that he wanted from the relationship without him having to put anything into it or give anything in return. And when the woman started to feel insecure and uncomfortable in that relationship, and she confronted him about this, she was actually a very aware woman. She was a very smart and aware woman, and she confronted him with this issue. And that's when gaslighting began. Gaslighting is something when the predator makes his victim believe that they are wrong, that they are crazy, that they are seeing things, that they are, inventing things. So he started to give her the message to kind of keep her in this place of helplessness. He started to give her the message that her reactions were inadequate, that there was no flirting, there were no glances, there were no gestures, no signs at all that he was interested in other women. And he played this confident man. And people with low self-confidence, so those who are more likely to become victims, they are the ones who start to question themselves, start to blame themselves. So he told her that it was her fault that their relationship was really in a bad condition. It was her fault, it was her judgment of him, criticism, etc. And it was her fault that he's going to lose him unless she gives in and he can continue the way he behaves. And this woman, of course, after this programming, starting to believe that she was bipolar, that she was hysterical, that she was seeing things that were not real, that she was inventing them, that she was, telling stories, all this that started to create a pattern. Really, she started to develop this anxiety, this strong anxiety. She had low self-confidence, that's true, but that did not have to be so strong that she would develop anxieties and panic attacks. Now, another story. It was a man who called me and he wanted me to speak with his wife because, as he said, his wife was having issues, mental issues. She should seek help, but she didn't want to reach out for some reason, which was already a bit funny, but anyway. And he told that she was having panic attacks. She had very low self-confidence. She was constantly anxious. She had some psychosomatic issues, etc. And he also used expressions like she was borderline and bipolar. They are just piling up all these expressions, all these words that they have read somewhere on Facebook or on a psychology blog. I don't know where they find them, but he was kind of diagnosing her. And the woman called me. We spoke with her, and I started to ask about since when she have these anxiety or panic attacks, what happened. And the picture was funnier and funnier with each and every moment, because she told me about her being afraid of flying. She was afraid of many things, but she grew up with that. So that was always the case. She was afraid of certain things, but it was never so strong that she couldn't handle that. So it was a kind of a fear that she got accustomed to. She knew that she won't feel comfortable on airplanes, but it wasn't that she couldn't go and fly. And so whatever, all the things that she told me started to give me the impression that this woman is actually okay, but something happened at some point in their marriage where she started to react to something, and I wanted to find out what that something was. And it's again just a conversation, no trance. You don't always need to go into hypnosis or trance or whatever. These things. Most often you just don't talk about them, and that's why you don't become so clearly aware of them. But the pattern is there, right in front of one's nose. So she started to talk about their marriage and how they met, etc. And she mentioned the thing. Her husband had a previous wife, and he met his present wife while he was still married to his previous wife. And I asked, how did this happen? How did they find, this love and all? And she said that, she was much younger than he was, and he had a very bad relationship. That's how he described it to her, and they were no longer together with his previous wife, because guess what? She was having mental problems. She had mental issues. Again, bipolar, whatever. And so they were no longer together, or kind of just officially still in a marriage. And he was so kind, so really funny, so loving, so caring. And I asked about her previous relationships. How were they? Did she have a boyfriend or a husband back when they met each other? No, she was single, and her previous relationships were actually okay. Moreover, her previous, she also had a marriage before that, and her previous marriage was actually a very loving one. Her husband loved her very much. So when but they were very young when they married, so it kind of didn't work out. But they still had a strong friendship. So they kind of grew up together. And there was this love, this care for each other, even though they went into separate directions. But I could feel the dynamics between those two. So the woman and her previous husband. So it was loving. There was no sign of extra anxiety, no panic attacks, no bipolar or neurotic depression, whatever. We are so fast when it comes to labeling, and we are also fast in accepting those labels. And that's why I became really curious about the husband, the present husband who sent his wife to me. And as we spoke with his wife, I felt that she had a lot of suppressed anger. Actually, it was anger. Not at me, but at her husband. And I asked how she feels in that relationship. What is happening? And what she told me was quite obvious. She felt insecure. She didn't know why she felt like that. But she felt like there was no ground under her, like she was losing the ground. And she said that she had these obsessive ideas about her husband leaving her or cheating on her. You remember how those two met, and subconsciously the woman suddenly changed places with the previous wife, and now she was in the same position and feeling that something was going on, something was not right there. And she said that all these thoughts were not just ideas out of the blue. She had some signs. She had read some signs that made her suspicious, but she could not confront her husband, because when it came to confrontation or questions, they were just questions, then he would turn her away and tell her that she was again imagining things, that she was acting insecure, needy, and she had a very low self-confidence, and that she was being again hysterical, and she was obsessive about this, obsessive jealousy. He made her feel like her jealousy was unfounded. It was all the product of her imagination. And of course, it started this spiral, because she was younger, of course, and she was still more, how do you call it, softer, shapeable. And this man, I had the suspicion, was using that. Now, we talked again with this man a bit later, and there was an interesting thing that he told me, that he had a wife before his second wife. So he actually had 3 wives already. And she too had mental issues. And he portrayed himself as a man who is deeply caring for these women, but after some time you can't live with these mental issues because it's just such a great burden on you. And he was trying to help them all the time. He was showing the same pattern. He blamed them. He said that all these reactions were overreacting, had no foundations at all. And he was trying to help them, save them, but he couldn't. So he looked for another relationship. And maybe it could even be true, but seeing his wife and talking with her and seeing these dynamics that were going on between them, one thing was for sure: that man never ever questioned if he had something to do with the anxieties or insecurities of those women. It usually started with simple insecurities. Those grew into anxieties, into psychosomatic symptoms, into even panic attacks at some point. And he was always there to label them. He would be the one who, like a psychiatrist, he would diagnose them, and tell them that they needed to seek for help. It was their responsibility and their fault that the marriage was falling apart, because they just couldn't control themselves, their feelings. And he was so smart that he knew the vulnerable points, those soft spots of those women, the problems with the father, or some abusive things from the past, whatever. So he knew their weak spots and he used them against them. So he made them believe that it's because you are repeating the same thing that your father, in your relationship with your father, that's why you are feeling insecure. Your parents were divorced and your father left your mother, so you are expecting me to leave you, etc. So all this was directed at these women. They were the only, so they were the fault of the marriage falling apart, and he was the savior who tried, but alas, he can't save everyone. And I asked if he had any relationships out of the marriage, so maybe not actual relationships, but some interests, let's put it this way. And he said that, well, yeah, like 1 or 2 times there was something, but not so serious. I have always loved my wives. What I felt was not concern, but a way out. He was looking for an exit, and that's how he betrayed. Actually, his words betrayed him. He was looking for an exit, and whenever he felt that his needs were not fully met, or he felt somewhat bored because in his life, in his personal and professional life, he was kind of stagnant. There was no big growth or expansion. And he felt a bit bored, stagnation, nothing new is coming. That's when he decided that it was the fault of the relationship. He couldn't breathe in the relationship. And those were his words, actually, when he spoke about his previous relationships, his previous marriages. And after a time, he couldn't breathe in those marriages with those women, with those mental issues of always the pattern of jealousy, always the pattern of them being insecure. And that's when he started to look for an exit. Now, at this moment, when he started to look for that exit in this present marriage, his wife subconsciously felt that, and even consciously she started to feel that. And that's when her anxiety really kicked in. She was very vulnerable. She had a child that she would have to raise alone, a child from a previous marriage. And now she felt really very helpless. So in this case, the reactions of those women were the reactions to him wanting to quit the relationship. And he then used their own anxieties and all those things that he knew about them, about their past, about their relationship with their father, and so on. He used this information to make them feel even more insecure, to close them into the spiral of helplessness with the label of mental disease, of mental issue, sending them, to seek help, etc. And giving himself an excuse to go over to the next marriage, where he, as a predator, he would take what he needed and didn't have the responsibility to pay that back. So at least that was his pattern that came back again and again. And he didn't want to work on that together with his wife. He just wanted his wife to be, fixed. Or to be more precise, he just wanted those wives to believe that they had a mental issue. And with that, his way would be free. Now, I'm telling you these stories because this is really disturbing. It is really awful to see that there are women who are actually healthy, mentally healthy, but they are in a very difficult place in their lives. They were very vulnerable. What made them vulnerable was their low self-esteem, low self-confidence, certain aspects of their lives like a child from a previous marriage, or age, or other things. But that's not the point. They became victims, and you need to become aware. So if you want to avoid this trap and learn from these cases once and forever, you need to become very cautious when someone puts a label on you. So if your husband or wife or partner or friend is too eager to tell you that you are borderline, that you are bipolar, that you are neurotic or depressed or obsessed, whatever they say, these fashionable labels today, be sure to ask you, okay, even if I'm overreacting, there must be some reason for that. What's my reason? Why am I reacting? Overreaction is only the sign that you are very sensitive. You are very vulnerable. That's why you are overreacting. You became oversensitive. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a reason to react. So ask yourself, what's my reason to react this way? Maybe the way in itself is not appropriate or not leading me anywhere. Maybe I'm hysterical, really truly hysterical, but that's just a behavior pattern. What makes me feel so hysterical? What makes me feel so out of control? What makes me feel so insecure, etc.? Ask yourself these questions, and then ask yourself, why is my partner, friend, whoever is so eager to put this label on me? What's their motivation? What's their point? What do they want with that? So don't accept these labels. Even if you are self-diagnosing yourself, don't accept these labels that you can read all over the internet about these mental issues. Don't label yourself as mentally ill, because you are not a psychiatrist. And even if a professional tells you that you have this or that, you are producing some symptoms, right? But those symptoms always have a reason. And they will make sense once you find out the reason. They don't make sense only if you take them out of the context and you don't put the whole picture together. And so, even if a professional tells you that you are this or that, make sure that you consult other professionals too, because it's a diagnosis at one time, at one point. Just make sure that you get as many professional views on that and explanations as you can. Don't accept these labels, and be aware that predators will use these labels against you, make you feel inadequate and sick and mentally ill and incapable. Okay? So that was the story for today, and thank you for your attention. If you have any comments or stories like this, just share it with us. So thank you for your attention. See you.